Good morning, guys. It is Monday, July 27th. I am tired. I may look tired because I am. I had a very eventful Sunday, very impromptu. I went to a white party, and then I went to see, brace yourself, I went to see Toto, Christopher Cross, and the Romantics. Okay, if you know, you know. 80s yacht music is like as they call it, but those that know Toto, Christopher Cross, like Toto and Michael Jackson. If you know, you know. If you don't, do your research. They're all been through Thriller. But anyway, so I'm gonna do 2 videos today. The second video is gonna be posted a little later in the day. I got home pretty late from the concert, and I did not get to watch the 6th episode of House of the Dragon season 3, so I have to catch up. I tried to stay off social media, so I didn't see any still shots to give anything away. But what I will talk about today is the Marvel presentation and Hall H. So, what did y'all think? So there was some things that happened that I was shocked about, and there's some things that were completely off of my radar, but I was glad to see them actually announce that. So the one thing that I was not even like thinking about was Ghost Rider. They revealed Ghost Rider is going to be a theatrical release, and they have Ryan Gosling as Ghost Rider. Now, are they going to have him be Johnny Blaze? We shall see. And that's supposed to come out in 2028. Cool. Then this is not in order, any particular order, they didn't talk about Secret Wars. I was shocked about that. I wasn't shocked to see Tom Holland. I was shocked that they showed a clip from the Spider-Man movie coming out this Friday. Didn't think they were going to do that, being as though it was coming out in like 5 days, 6 days. But glad that people that were there were privy to an exclusive scene. Everyone online was describing it, and I mean, you don't need to sell me. I'm going to see it regardless of whether they have a panel or not. Like, I'm going to see Spider-Man, right? They didn't talk about X-Men, and I didn't think that they were. I really think that once Spider-Man comes out and they reveal who Sadie Sink is, if she is in fact Jean Grey, which a lot of people are assuming that she is, I think they're going to address X-Men a little bit at Disney 23, and that's what, like the end, like the end of the beginning of the end of August. So we shall see, right? They talked about Doomsday. They showed in it another trailer, which hopefully will be released to the public soon. No scenes or anything like that, but they did have a nice amount of cast members there. And I get people have schedule conflicts and all of that jazz, but it would have been nice to see more of them there. So let me see if I get all these people correct, because they did something different. They had 2 stages. They had a stage in the back of the crowd, and then they had a stage up front. And so Robert Downey Jr. was there, Chris Evans, Pedro Pascal, Sam Wilson, Anthony Mackie, the actors that play Joaquin Torres, Namor, M'Baku, Shuri, Cyclops, Mystique, the actor that plays Red Guardian, the actress that plays Ghost. I know I'm forgetting some people, but it was about maybe 6 or 7 across on both stages, right? Of course, there's plenty of other actors that are in the movie that weren't present for whatever reason, and not a big deal, but it would have been nice to see them, because if we don't see them again on stage the next time we see them will be on the big screen. The cool thing that happened, which is interesting to watch the dynamic between Robert Downey Jr. and Ryan Reynolds, because there was like speculation that they weren't really getting along on set. So this was in the beginning, and I don't know if it was funny because they were saying this, but then I don't know if it was an interview or an insider was saying that they've never been on set together for them to have any type of like altercation or like bad words with one another. But for people to say that, it made people think, oh, well, okay, Deadpool's obviously in Doomsday. So he was dressed up like Deadpool. Deadpool was in Hall H with a jean denim replica of his red and black suit, walking through the crowd, taking pictures with people. You know how Disney characters don't talk in Disney World? He was doing that type of stick. And people, unbeknownst to everybody, it was Ryan Reynolds. So he got up to say something. Of course, he had a mic on his person and, you know, asked a couple questions. And that's when people realized, oh my God, this is really Ryan Reynolds, because his voice is very distinctive. Like, you know his voice. And oh, Paul Rudd, he was there. Paul Rudd. So Paul Rudd had took a dig at his soccer team not doing too hot. But then he asked about like when they started filming Doomsday. And RDJ was like, it's in the bag. Have you bumped your head? Like, your opportunity's over. And it was just interesting that he kind of took that stance with him. I don't know if anybody else felt that way. I was like, okay, that wasn't really nice, but whatever. The one part that was so funny to me was, I think somebody asked about the relationship that Reed Richards and Doom have. And people are trying to get, like, they're trying to pull teeth to get details out of. And Pedro Pascal, he's so silly to me. I mean, they both are. He was like, besties. Like, that can't be further from the truth. That's just so funny to me. What else happened that really stands out for me? So, Ryan Coogler got on stage. It was like the last thing that happened before Kevin Feige kind of shut the panel down. He brought out the actor that plays M'Baku and the actor that plays Shuri. And I guess without giving too much, they didn't have any other actors on the stage that we would know of. Like, we didn't have any of the Dora Milaje. We didn't have Namor, so obviously Namor's not in the next Black Panther. But he's obviously in Doomsday. No other characters. We don't see Nakia, which I thought we would. Yeah, really interesting. However, he announced who is playing T'Challa's son. So, all of this whole, you know, Steve Rogers, how'd he go from cuddling his newborn with his, you know, traditional short haircut, clean shaven face, to having that sexy beard and long hair. I need that hair to be in a man bun, but whatever, that's just me being me. There's going to be a huge time jump. Either a time jump or, as they call it, time dilation. Because the actor Daniel Johnson, who I haven't heard of, but I've heard amazing things about him, is playing his son. So how old was his son when we saw him in the movie Wakanda Forever? 5 or 6, right? So he's aged up to be a teenager. And I saw a lot of people giving him his flowers about how good of an actor he is, but his stature they had an issue with. Now, I did some digging, and Chadwick Boseman was believed to have been like 5'11", 5'10", not short, but not extremely tall. In the comics, Black Panther, T'Challa is supposed to be this tall, big, muscular man, and a lot of people were saying, oh, they should have had Michael Jai White. Of course, in a perfect world, they want to have somebody built like Spawn, you know what I mean? But that's not what they wanted to go with, and he's much older, so him playing T'Challa, like the new T'Challa now, doesn't track. And if they want his son to take over as Black Panther, then they're going to have a younger version, obviously, because the time jump, I mean, they can't jump but so far, right? But the time jump would make sense if they move up, let's see, I don't know, 10 years? Because I believe, not to say these have to be in line with what's going on in, like, the Avengers, but if I'm not mistaken, when we see Cap at Endgame, the baby's a few months old, right? If any, right? Like, 1 or 2 months. The baby's pretty small. But then, to my understanding, when we see Steve again, I think maybe 10 years have passed. So, if we're keeping that same type of time jump in all the other movies, then how old would T'Challa Jr. be? 15, 16? He'd be like a teenager. And not to say all teenagers are little, but I feel like he can play a younger version of the new T'Challa, which is T'Challa Jr., a teenager. So I'm glad that that they announced that. You know, gives us something to talk about, something to look forward to. They didn't mention anything about Storm, which I'm glad they didn't. They didn't talk about any X-Men, which I'm glad they didn't. Like, give us time to process everything that's going on, right? And Kevin Feige actually said that these movies coming up after Star Wars, Jesus, the Secret Wars, will not be a reboot. They will not be a reboot. Which is good to hear, because when I think of reboot, I think of James Gunn and him wiping the slate clean with Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, and Jason Momoa, Ben Affleck. I'm glad he's not doing that. I'm curious as to what story he's going to tell, whether it's going to be an alternate universe and there's a different set of X-Men, not a starting from scratch with new faces like DC loves to do. Right? So there's that. And that's why I go back to my thought about the X-Men playing a pivotal role in the next 2 movies, but they're not going to survive. Or if they do survive, it's just like, okay, we're going to survive outside of the Avengers world, or we'll just do our own thing. And you won't see us again. The only reason that you see us is because our worlds are converging momentarily. And things may change when they get to Battle World. All the faces may change because of, they'll have to make sense of it, you know what I mean? Because as much as I love James Marsden, you can't have a James Marsden in his age, which, no shade whatsoever, I'm just saying, you can't have an older James Marsden and then a young looking Jean Grey. You know what I mean? There has to be something. These roads sorry guys, they're doing all this road work near me, and they're slowly creeping down the road in terms of, you gonna let me go, thank you, in terms of, what was I saying? Yeah, they're doing all this road work, and they're slowly creeping up the block, blocking things off at the worst opportune time, like during the morning commute. Anyway, so yeah, so there's that. Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, I've heard several people, Cosmic Wonder, Everything Always, Emergency Awesome, New Rock Stars, speaking to something pertaining to Tobey Maguire, Wolverine, in the opening minutes of the movie, and something happening with his world not making it. You know, I can't speak much to that because I don't know what to believe. There's so many storylines that are going to be going on during this 2 hour 45-minute movie. I can't even speculate. I think they'll give us more as we get closer. I like that there's some movies, if you think about who you know for certain is in the movie, and then you get pleasantly surprised to find out that other characters are in it. And I don't remember initially when they released Wakanda Forever's cast list online if we saw Michael B. Jordan. I don't remember that because I didn't go into it knowing that he was going to be in the movie. And when Shuri went to the ancestral plane, seeing him there was not on my bingo card. So I was pleasantly surprised to see him there. You know what I mean? What other movie really shocked me? Obviously, we had speculated heavily that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were going to be in the last Spider-Man. But when we saw them, boy, oh boy, I was like, oh my God, yes. And I thought about the cartoon where they're all pointing at each other. I say all that to say, I hope that these next 4 months, they don't take away the suspense of who's going to be present. Like, I really want to, like, an aha moment. Like, if they want to have that wow factor that they did in Infinity War and Endgame, leave something to the imagination. Please, 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 please. So yeah, that's my take on the Marvel portion of Comic-Con. I'm trying to find other information about other projects that are coming out. I understand that there was a DC panel with Green Lantern, and that's a TV series that's coming out. I don't know why I thought that was a movie, but I think that might be their sweet spot in terms of like their productions coming out, because the preview that I saw looked good. It looked good, and I think they'll be able to cook a little better with the storylines if they have a series, you know. So I'm looking forward to watching that. Excuse me. Woo. Still have to watch the Clayface trailer in its entirety. I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a desire to do so, but I wouldn't be doing you a service if I didn't watch it to talk about it. I'm curious as to what the D23 presentation is going to look like. I'm really happy about that because I know they mentioned that this Hall H isn't going to discuss any of the television series or productions, which, you know, it's fair, you know, it's fine. He did briefly say that Vision Quest is coming out in October, so I'm glad he confirmed that. Not at Hall H, but I did hear about him saying that he wants to bring Miles Morales to the silver screen, having a live action one, and I'm looking forward to that. I say all that to say, I hope that these next 4 months they don't take away the suspense of who's going to be present. Like, I really want to, like, an aha moment. Like, if they want to have that wow factor that they did in Infinity War and Endgame, leave something to the imagination. Please, 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 please. So yeah, that's my take on the Marvel portion of Comic-Con. I'm trying to find other information about other projects that are coming out. I understand that there was a DC panel with Green Lantern, and that's a TV series that's coming out. I don't know why I thought that was a movie, but I think that might be their sweet spot in terms of like their productions coming out, because the preview that I saw looked good. It looked good, and I think they'll be able to cook a little better with the storylines if they have a series, you know. So I'm looking forward to watching that. Excuse me. Woo. Still have to watch the Clayface trailer in its entirety. I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a desire to do so, but I wouldn't be doing you a service if I didn't watch it to talk about it. I'm curious as to what the D23 presentation is going to look like. I'm really happy about that, because I know they mentioned that this Hall H isn't going to discuss any of the television series or productions, which, you know, it's fair, you know, it's fine. He did briefly say that Vision Quest is coming out in October, so I'm glad he confirmed that. Not at Hall H, but I did hear about him saying that he wants to bring Miles Morales to the silver screen, having a live action one, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to that, because the animated movies that we have of Miles Morales were like really good. I'm a visual person, and the animation in that alone was something that I've never seen before, and the storylines were really good. I don't think that they're going to try to replicate that into live action. They might, but if they do, they gotta have Kingpin, like the man that plays Kingpin. He's amazing. Have him play Kingpin, okay? I know there was always an issue with the series and moving that to like his, I don't know what, there was something going on where they couldn't bring Kingpin from the series to like the big screen. I think they're still working that out. That was a whole big thing with Daredevil. But in any case, I would love to see that. I wanna talk about going back now. Still talking about Marvel, but going back, just thinking about all of the shows that have come out since Endgame, and a lot of people think or say, believe, which I partially believe to be true and agree with, that they were really lackluster. And it's a shame, because I feel like they could have done a lot with those series and kept them going. Like, all the series don't have to eventually tie back into the movies. So you think about, I'm working backwards here, not in any particular order. You think about Ironheart, you think about Echo, you think about Secret Invasion, you think about WandaVision, Agatha All Along, Vision Quest, oh gosh, Loki, you know, Hawkeye. A lot of these characters had roles in the movies and they had their branch out series. Only person I could think of that had a movie dedicated to them, like solely to themselves after everything kind of happened, was Black Widow. And it wasn't after everything, but it's just like her movie should have came out way before, way earlier than it did. I want to touch on a couple of those because Moon Knight. Now, I personally enjoyed Ironheart. I feel like they could have done a lot more with her and the story, because everybody, and shout out to Eric Voss from New Rockstars, because he has been waiting so long for Mephisto to show his face. And I did not, of all the shows, I did not think that we were going to get him in Ironheart. I promise you, if I bet money, I would have lost, because that's not the show that I would have said, this is where we're going to see him. I know it for certain. You know, they dropped that bomb on us, but what are they going to do with it? What are they going to do with it? You know, they introduced Ironheart in Wakanda Forever, and it was cute, and it made sense because the government was trying to siphon vibranium from the sea. It got on the radar of Namor and Wakanda. They have this, now they know they both have in their history interwoven vibranium all of them through. Wakandans were very cocky about thinking that they were the only ones to ever have vibranium, you know, and so they find out that this machine that can drill into the earth to retrieve it was created by this MIT student, you know, smart girl. Shuri is smart. Bruce Banner is smart. Tony Stark is smart. He's no longer on this earth. And if we think about how Ironheart and Tony Stark are related, that should have been something where it was like she met him before he passed, obviously, in some type of like engineering, science, STEM program. And he had her on his radar, but unfortunately they never got to actually be in the lab together. And she talked about him so much, and she admired him so much, and we have flashback, like something, you know, because we just get, I should have, and one thing that I was pissed about that never happened, that Shuri never met Tony Stark. When she said what she said about Vision, and when they were trying to get the Mind Stone out of Vision, and she was using all her tech to do it very intricately, and she said something to Bruce, and he was like, we didn't think of that. Can you imagine the on-screen banter that Shuri and Tony Stark could have had? You know what I mean? Just think about that. Just think about that. And I just, that breaks my heart, because that would have been such an amazing team. The three of them, Bruce, Shuri, and Tony Stark. I mean, I can even throw Reed Richards in there, but that would just be impossible. Well, we're supposed to get it, hopefully, something to that effect in Doomsday. Will Bruce Banner be there? According to what happens in Secret Wars, maybe not. I mean, Spider-Man, maybe not. But Ironheart, they could have done so much more with her story, and people didn't like her. I don't know if they didn't like her because she didn't come off the way they expected her to. Maybe she came off too cocky. Maybe they didn't like the actress, and I don't know why. It left a lot to be desired. Her friend that passed away, her coming back, it was really interesting. And then the young girl, I forget her name, that had the shop, the sweets shop, I thought they were going to connect that to Agatha all along somehow. I just, it was so many areas of potential that I feel like they kind of dropped the ball on a little bit. But maybe it'll all come full circle in a project down the pipeline. I thought Echo was good. It didn't connect to any of the movies, which is fine. But we saw her in Hawkeye, and that was a branched off series that they created from Hawkeye. I just, because we saw Kingpin in that too. Oh gosh, there's something that's happening that we are truly unbeknownst to, because there's too many things that were happening on Disney Plus that left people wondering, like, okay, why are they creating this? In the grand scheme of things, is this all going to be interconnected? And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be, when they did that Hall H presentation, I want to say, was it 2019? And Kevin Feige did his timeline of all the projects, theatrical releases, special presentations, and Disney Plus series. I said to myself, whoa. Oh, we're about to have a field day. Like, we're going to be busy for a while, absorbing all this good content. And I said to myself, what? The one series, not to say that I don't like Loki. I love Loki. But I'm like, what are they going to do with Loki? What are we going to do with Loki? Because he died on screen, and then we saw a past version of him just disappear in a failed Tesseract heist, and boy, oh boy, was I pleasantly surprised. The only downside to that show is that they gave us 6 episodes in each season, because I feel like, and now with Loki being in Doomsday, just like they're giving us an encore presentation of Endgame, we're supposed to get like these deleted scenes, but they're supposed to like kind of bridge Endgame to Doomsday a little more like seamlessly. They could have easily gave us a special presentation or a third season where we get a bridge from Loki's perspective when it comes to Doom and Steve Rogers. And the best way that I can make the best comparison I can make to that process is Rogue One. I'm switching completely, but stay with me. Anybody that's a Star Wars fan, a quiet beast in that entire era was Rogue One. Rogue One was a good bridge between episode give me a second, episode 3 and episode 4. So episode 3, Rogue One, and episode 4. The way that they had those blend into each other, which is a story that we probably would have never had in our minds. Like, how did this come to be? if it wasn't for Rogue One. I loved Rogue One. Wasn't a happily ever after type of movie either, which we all kind of want, but that movie, if you have not seen it, it's worth watching. But anyway, that's what I envision a special presentation of Loki season 3. And even if it's not the full season, even though their full seasons for him were 6 episodes, I guess a special presentation, extended special presentation, where it was like longer than like the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas episode. Yeah, that would have been something that we should have received. Or, which I've said for years, we could have had a special presentation of Cap putting all the stones back and showing how that series of events put Cap on his radar, put Cap on Loki's radar. But maybe they'll show that in the movie. I'm hopeful that they'll show some of that in the movie, because we can't just go from Loki showing up to Steve Rogers' house with Peggy and the baby saying we got to go, not speaking to how him staying back and living a life with her did damage in another reality, hence Dr. Doom's losing everything and feeling as though Steve Rogers is the reason, right? You know, so I know I'm all over the place, but so is this universe, the MCU. And it really, Lord, I wish I could be a fly on the wall in the creative room when they think about how they're going to create these movies and these shows and how they want them to all be interconnected, because that's something that I'm sure a lot of people want to know. What makes these storylines flow? And I would assume that they don't want the audience to be confused. You know, they don't want them to be confused, but they want them to have enough questions to be like, okay, the next part is going to answer this, or at the end of this, it's all going to make sense. It's all going to make sense. Because I remember there was an interview with the Russo brothers was it after Endgame? I think it was after Endgame, and people just could not wrap their heads around, me included, the blip and the time stones and all of that jazz. And I was just like, there are some holes in the plot. And they had to, make sense of some of the things that happened, because some people left with questions. Not so much so that we were like, this movie doesn't make any sense. It wasn't to that degree at all. But it left us with enough curiosity about how things came to be, so that when we saw Doomsday coming out, we were like, they gotta make it make sense here. Because where the heck has Doom been all this time? Why is Steve existing now such a problem for him? How did that happen? How did him living a life affect his life? And if it affected his life, so here's something that in this moment, I'm trying to understand. If it affected his life in the Fantastic Four's reality, wouldn't it have affected the Fantastic Four as well, to some degree, right? Yeah, because if my speculations are correct in terms of Reed knowing him, Sue knowing him, we saw in the Fantastic Four where they had what we would consider like the United Nations, and we saw Latveria seat flag. That should have been not Reed Richard. That should have been Dr. Doom, right? Victor Von Doom. Does Reed know that Cap is in their reality? That Loki brought him there? Is he like under witness protection? Him coming to that reality did what? Because of his presence alone, and not him having any interaction with any supernatural things in that universe, the same could be said for Monica Rambeau coming over to the X-Men, right? Because just the mere presence of somebody being there had to have done something. Because they make it seem as if there's a rip in time that allowed her to pass through. A rip versus a strategic movement. Like you got sucked in by accident. I mean, not accident, you stayed there and then let it close. But Loki's moving you through a time portal. So like he who remains is able to manipulate time and have all these time portals and jumping and all that stuff. He was messing with time, and Sylvie killing him was messing with time. Why isn't he pissed with He Who Remains or Kang? I just, this so, and that's enough. I can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. It just, like, you know what I mean? We had Kang. Not to say that we don't need Doom. We definitely need Doom. We had Kang, and they just totally did away with that storyline. But his storyline has so much to do with moving through time, or putting back the time stone. I mean, the Infinity Stones, Loki, like all of that. It all had to do with one another. The technology that Reed Richards had, and was it the 636 or the 836? That time where we saw Doctor Strange, and we had a different Reed Richards. That's the same technology that the TVA used, that Kang uses. Like, I gotta stop here because it's just, I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole, and then I'm gonna just like have a headache. But I will say I'm pleasantly surprised to see everything that was presented at Hall H. Was I a little disappointed about certain things? Yes. Did I think they were going to announce a Shang-Chi movie? I was hoping so. Because of his presence alone, and not him having any interaction with any supernatural things in that universe, the same could be said for Monica Rambeau coming over to the X-Men, right? Because just the mere presence of somebody being there had to have done something. Because they make it seem as if there's a rip in time that allowed her to pass through. A rip versus a strategic movement. Like you got sucked in by accident. I mean, not accident, you stayed there and then let it close. But Loki's moving you through a time portal. So like he who remains is able to manipulate time and have all these time portals and jumping and all that stuff. He was messing with time, and Sylvie killing him was messing with time. Why isn't he pissed with He Who Remains or Kang? I just, this so, and that's enough. I can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. It just, like, you know what I mean? We had Kang. Not to say that we don't need Doom. We definitely need Doom. We had Kang, and they just totally did away with that storyline. But his storyline has so much to do with moving through time. Or putting back the time stone. I mean, the Infinity Stones. Loki. Like, all of that. It all had to do with one another. The technology that Reed Richards had, and was it the 636 or the 836? That time where we saw Doctor Strange, and we had a different Reed Richards. That's the same technology that the TVA used, that Kang uses. Like, I gotta stop here because it's just, I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole, and then I'm gonna just like have a headache. But I will say I'm pleasantly surprised to see everything that was presented at Hall H. Was I a little disappointed about certain things? Yes. Did I think they were going to announce a Shang-Chi movie? I was hoping so. And this is why I feel like his Doom's hatred for Captain America or Steve Rogers is wildly misplaced, because him just being there shouldn't have done anything to harm Doom's wife and child. Let's go back to not Steve staying back with Peggy, not Steve putting back the stones, but the initial snap that Thanos did in Infinity War wiped out half of all living beings. Thanos didn't use the stones again, because the stones were used 4 times. So that was once. Again, when he used the stones to destroy the stones, right? Then they got the stones. Bruce snapped everybody that was lost back. And then Tony used the stones to get rid of Thanos and all of his goons and his soldiers. All Steve did in terms of the stones were put them back at the exact point they were taken from. And that's what Bruce was trying to explain to the Ancient One. Like, if you take the stones out, it causes an alternative timeline to be created, but if you put them back were they never taken? So in the second preview, Doom says, you guys have stolen lives. And I'm trying to understand for the life of me how, if the lives that were taken were put back. So is he trying to say that what Thanos did was supposed to happen, that was destined to happen, and you're trying to undo destiny? I don't know. Did his family get snapped and he just accepted it, and then they were brought back and an accident happened? Because doesn't the story go that Victor Von Doom, was doing an experiment that went terribly wrong, and that's how his family got killed? Because if his beef is with Steve Rogers for just merely existing in another timeline, his beef really should be with Loki, because he's allowing people to exist when the TVA clearly says certain timelines should not exist. He's allowing those timelines to exist. I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. And I think that the comic narrative and the movie narrative may not actually be lining up. Right? Like Reed Richards and Victor Von Doom are not besties, right? But they knew each other. They were colleagues. You know, I don't know. I'm curious. I'm really curious. I could be dead wrong or I could be spot on. But there's something that doesn't seem right with that. Why him? How does he know about Steve Rogers? Is he meddling? Like, is Victor Von Doom, was he meddling in something and found out? Did the snap, like, you know what I mean? Like, because if the snap happened in all the universes, people would have gotten snapped in Reed Richards' timeline. Right? Because they don't mention that. I don't think they've mentioned that at all in Fantastic Four. It's yeah. The more I sit in it, the more questions I have. And maybe they'll answer those questions in the movie, or allude to something in the next trailer. I'm waiting for Eric Ross to break down the trailer that he saw at Comic-Con, because if there's one person that can make sense of it, it's him. Everything Always in Cosmic Wonder also, but I know he's gonna do it too. And I'm sure he probably has the same questions that I do. Something just doesn't seem right. Are they trying to rewrite the story? And I'm basing it off of the first two Fantastic Fours that we saw. When I think of Reed Richards, I think of Victor Von Doom. Not Victor Von Doom having a vendetta against Captain America, unbeknownst to him, right? So, we shall see. We shall see. But what are some of your theories? What are some of your theories when you heard that Dr. Doom has an issue with Captain America living in an alternative timeline, and him blaming Cap for merely existing in a reality that he wasn't supposed to? What was your initial thought? Did it make sense to you, or did you have questions as to how and why? You know, because Tony's saying, you know, when you mess with time, it tends to mess back. What does it mean? What does that mean?